Hello everyone, this is Mathews here. Today I want to talk about how to write a good TOK essay. I'm a senior teacher who has been teaching TOK for the last 20 years. TOK simply means Theory of Knowledge. It's one of the prescribed titles that is offered by the International Baccalaureate. Any student who would like to get a diploma certificate must pass in TOK. Let's start with selecting the right prescribed title. IB offers 6 prescribed titles that a student must choose one from there. The prescribed title that you are supposed to choose should be something you love, you are passionate about, and you really feel that you can tackle it. In that way, you are able to bring in your own personal experiences and experiences of others in order to, make your argument clear. The prescribed titles come in 2 formats. One, a prescribed title that in itself is a knowledge question. And second, a prescribed title from which you need to extract a knowledge question. Selecting the right title requires you, first of all, to look at the title and see whether you are able to unpack it. To unpack a title simply means that you will need to look at the key concepts and then know what those key concepts are all about. So let's take an example. Suspension of disbelief is an essential feature of theater. Is it essential in other areas of knowledge? Develop your answer with reference to 2 areas of knowledge. This is a prescribed title which is in the form of a knowledge question. A student doesn't need to develop his or her own knowledge question when writing the essay. You can use that prescribed title in itself as a knowledge question and then continue developing your argument. That prescribed title, it's known as a second order knowledge claim. Now, let's look at another title which requires you to extract a knowledge question. The field of study of academic discipline can overlap, but adopting interdisciplinary approaches to the production of knowledge leads only to confusion. Discuss this claim. That prescribed title is a second order claim, but not framed in the form of a knowledge question. The student must extract a knowledge question from it. When you make a claim, it's called a statement of intent. You are suggesting that a certain event took place, but that claim in itself is useless if it's not verified. You can have a first order claim, which is a claim simply to pass a certain message. An example, I can say for myself that I ate an apple yesterday. That is a first order claim. Its main purpose is to pass a certain information. That claim itself in technical TOK will mean it's personal knowledge. I ate an apple yesterday is only known to me and not to any other person. For that knowledge to be valid, it must be supported by either another person or shared knowledge, which means that a friend of mine saw me eating an apple yesterday. So that is a first order claim. A first order claim leads to a first order knowledge question. So you extract a knowledge question from it. It is subject specific because the content we are in discussion here is about eating an apple. A first order claim simply it's there to give direct knowledge without going into the details of how that knowledge was acquired. Let's now look at a second order claim and a second order knowledge question. A second order knowledge question is concerned with how knowledge is constructed and evaluated. It's not subject specific. It's how that particular knowledge, how that acquisition of knowledge, the process of acquiring that knowledge came into being. And I'm going to read for you here one particular second order knowledge question. Scientists are much more concerned with the causation of an event as opposed to its outcome. To what extent do you agree with this statement? This is a second order knowledge question because it is general in nature and not specific. So let's go back. I've introduced 2 concepts here. It is general in nature and not specific. So when we go back, you will find that a first order claim is specific. Matthew ate an apple yesterday. Very specific to a particular statement of intent. But a second order claim or a second order knowledge question, it is general in nature and not subject specific. When a student is writing a TOK essay, they will need to extract a second order knowledge question from the claim made, which is in the prescribed title. So of the 6 prescribed titles, you must select a title which you are more passionate about, you have the feeling that you can tackle it, as opposed to selecting a title which is ambiguous or nebulous. You have selected your prescribed title. The next step after selecting your prescribed title is either you meet with your supervisor or your teacher, or you have a peer-to-peer discussion and do some brainstorming session. In the course of the brainstorming, you can write down some notes. You can have a mind map, record your discussions, and thereafter, you will sit down now to write your essay. The introduction part of the TOK essay has 4 components that a candidate must fulfill. 1, unpacking the prescribed title, the major concepts within the title. The student must give a roadmap, must show the examiner that they understand the holistic nature of the prescribed title. So the first thing is to unpack by explaining the major concepts. The word is not definition, it's explaining. And explaining does not mean that you use the dictionary, because the dictionary in itself is ambiguous. It has got so many definitions. You can check the major terms online in the dictionary, but the student must explain those concepts in his or her own understanding. In TOK, this is called metacognitive knowledge. Metacognitive knowledge is whereby somebody takes a concept, digests that concept, it becomes palatable to him or herself, and now explains that concept in his or in her own understanding. Secondly, state the WOK, which is the ways of knowing, and the AOK, which is the areas of knowledge that the candidate is going to use in the essay. Thereafter, now the candidate must give their judgment on whether they agree or don't agree with the claim made in the prescribed title. After you have now unpacked the titles, stated your WOK and AOKs, some students, you find them that in the introduction, they state the knowledge questions they're going to use in the writing of their essay. It's not really desirable for students to state the knowledge questions at the introduction level. Knowledge questions are supposed to come out naturally when writing your TOK essay. And you'll find that it's much easier for somebody who's assessing your work to enjoy reading your work if the knowledge questions come naturally. The main body of the essay has these concepts: argument, a claim, a counterclaim, a perspective, analysis and evaluation, and synthesis. Once you have unpacked the titles and now you start making your argument, the argument is based in the form of a claim. The word argument simply means how you are putting your thoughts forward in respect to the prescribed title. If you agree with the claim in the prescribed title, then you will defend it. But of course, the best TOK essays is whereby you give both sides of the spectrum. You agree with the requirements of the prescribed title, and at the same time, later disagree with the requirements of the prescribed title. And then at the conclusion, look at the pros and cons of your argument and make a final conclusion. Let's take an example. We'll look at the previous one of suspension of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief is an essential feature of theater. Is it essential in other areas of knowledge? So here, suspension of disbelief simply means that when you go to watch Iron Man, Black Panther, we know very well that some of those scenes, actions taking place in the movie are not real. So what we do, we suspend our disbelief that this movie is actually real, but we know that it's not real, so to enjoy the features of the theater. So in that way, you have suspended your disbelief and you want to enjoy this movie. So your claim will be that it is true. Suspension of disbelief is an essential feature of theater. And you'll give an example. You support that claim and give an example. So when you make a claim must be supported by an example. And that example must be based on a real life situation. You cannot use an hypothetical example. You cannot use an example that is not real, an example that is very utopian. So it's very essential that whatever example you use, it must be based on real life situation. So if let's take an example, you've been participating in drama in your school and you are acting as a donkey or a rabbit. You have taken the features and the characteristics of a rabbit or a donkey simply to pass a message about the human personality. Now, the purpose of doing that, of course, is a form of euphemism, which means that we do not want to directly hit or attack humanity in terms of their failings or misgivings that have happened in the world or in our society. So you use in a very subtle manner, you use the characteristics of a donkey or a rabbit in order to put forward a certain concept. So you say here, we suspended disbelief. You have taken the role of a donkey or a rabbit, but we know that the essence, the message that is being passed is what really is important. So once you make your claim, you defend your claim with the right examples. We said examples must be based on a real life situation. Okay, now once you've made your claim and you've supported with the examples which are based on real life situation, then you counter the claim. So you made a claim, you counter the claim. So let me give you this example. John is the best footballer in our school. A simple claim. So I'm going to make a simple counter claim again. John is not the best footballer in our school because Jennifer, who plays for the girls' soccer team, is equally good at football. Simple claim, simple counterclaim. Now, some students in the essay can either give a simple claim, but ideally, a good essay should give a sophisticated counterclaim that could come from a second order claim and is well supported by the requisite examples. So, how do we make this simple claim and counterclaim of John be a second order claim and a second order counterclaim, or a sophisticated counterclaim? Let's try to counter that claim in a more sophisticated manner. You'll say, yes, whereas we agree that John is the best footballer, he's not the overall best, nor does he display the qualities of a universally accepted footballer in terms of skills. He could be the best footballer in the school because the other students are mediocre, but that does not make him a superstar or bring him to the level of the likes of Ronaldo, Messi, and maybe Mpambe. So in that way, you have countered that claim, but in a rather sophisticated manner by bringing in other examples. Let's look at analysis and evaluation. In a TOK essay, when you analyze and evaluate, you are looking at the first claim made, then you look at the counterclaim made, then you give another claim and a counterclaim. So you compare the first claim and counterclaim and the second claim and counterclaim and try to analyze both of them. And when you analyze them, it's comparing certain indicators and variables, and this leads to your evaluation. So whatever you've been evaluated can be further synthesized by giving a critique of certain loopholes or certain suppositions or certain postulates which have been made, which are vague, which are not understandable, which do not have concrete evidence to be supported. And in this way, you are trying to show that you understand this concept just beyond the mere aspect of conceptualizing these ideas without giving it that metacognitive aspect. So that is what we mean by doing an analysis and evaluation, which eventually leads to a synthesis. There are certain things we need to explain about, use of examples. We have seen certain students, write in their essay using cliche examples. The Earth, the heliocentric, geocentric theory, Albert Einstein and the law of relativity, the issue of Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, spontaneous generation, all these are cliche examples. Ideally, a good student should write an essay based on his or her own personal experience or examples which come from the locality of that particular candidate. So in that way, you're owning those examples. And sometimes examples can also be based on local or international events which are quite recent. There is nothing wrong about a student talk about Nikola Tesla, but at the same time, his examples are being used over and over again. As much as we would like you to use, certain examples which are based on earlier experiences, those examples have been overused and they become a cliche. So ideally, a candidate is advised to use examples which are sometimes more modern, more relevant to our situation in our present times. A TOK essay is something personal, something passionate, it's something that should come from you. Now, after that, the last part of your TOK essay is the conclusion. Ideally, there are three things that you need to do in the conclusion. One, you need to make your stand on whether you support the claim made in the prescribed title. Second, you can give your own summary of what evidence you have in order to arrive at that conclusion. And thirdly, you are not supposed to introduce new materials in the conclusion. So which means that for whatever evidence you give in the conclusion, it must be something that was tackled in the main body. And your conclusion should be firm enough to state your stand, whether you support the claim made in the prescribed title or not. And the examiner, the assessor is not going to penalize you on your stand you've taken. The assessor is much more concerned on how you were able to advance your argument. And if your argument is coherent, it is cogent and understandable, then I don't think you're going to have a problem. So, my dear viewers, that comes to the end of my presentation. And in my next video, I'm going to present on how to make a good TOK oral presentation. Thank you.